and welcome to the session on the use of fire extinguishers. It is important to have appropriate knowledge about fire and using fire extinguishers. Let's begin with the session.
Let us look at the objectives of this session. At the end of this session, you will be able to define fire and fire extinguishers, identify types of fires and fire extinguishers, state the procedure for using fire extinguishers. First, let us learn about fire. Fire is the burning of combustible material. A fire in an unwanted place or occasion and in uncontrollable quantity can cause damage or destroy property and materials. Fire injures people and sometimes causes loss of life. Hence, every effort must be made to prevent fire. Fire can be put off by eliminating any one of the three factors, namely fuel, heat, and oxygen. These factors must be present as a combination for a fire to continue to burn. Let us learn each of these briefly. Fuel. Any substance, liquid, solid, or gas will burn if enough oxygen and heat are given. Heat. This ignites the fire when the fuel reaches its flash and fire point temperature. Oxygen. Usually, oxygen exists in sufficient quantity in air to keep a fire burning. The air contains 21% of oxygen. Next, let us learn about extinguishing of fires. Isolating or removing any of the three factors, that is fuel, heat, or oxygen, from the combination will extinguish the fire. There are three basic ways of achieving this: starving the fire, smothering, cooling. Let us look at each of these in detail. Starving the fire of fuel by removing the fuel in the vicinity of the fire. Smothering. Smothering is done by isolating the fire from the supply of oxygen by blanketing it with foam, sand, etc. Cooling. Cooling is done by using water to lower the temperature. Now, let us learn how to prevent fires. The majority of fires begin with small outbreaks which burn unnoticed until they become big fires of uncontrollable magnitude. Most of the fires could be prevented with more care and by following some rules of simple common sense. Accumulation of combustible refuse like cotton waste soaked with oil, scrap wood, paper, etc. in odd corners are of fire risk. Refuse should be removed to collection points. The cause of fire in electrical equipment is misuse or neglect. Loose connections, wrongly rated fuses or cables, overloaded circuits cause overheating, which may in turn lead to fire. Clothing and anything else which might catch fire should be kept well away from heaters. Make sure that the heater is shut off at the end of a working day. Highly flammable liquids and petroleum mixtures like tinner, adhesive solutions, solvents, kerosene, spirit, LPG gas, etc. should be stored in a separate place called the flammable material storage area. Next, let us learn about the classification of fires and recommended extinguishing agents. Fires are classified mainly into four types based on the nature of fuel as Class A, B, C, and D. Further, fires related to electrical and kitchen hazards are subclassified as Class E and Class F respectively as shown. Let us now learn what an extinguishing agent is. An agent is the material or substance used to put out the fire and is usually, but not always, contained in a fire extinguisher with a mechanism for spraying into the fire. It is important to know the right type of agent for a particular type of fire. Using the wrong one can make things worse. Let us now learn what fire extinguishers are. A fire extinguisher is an active fire protection device used to extinguish or control small fires, often in emergencies. Many types of fire extinguishers are available with different extinguishing agents to deal with different classes of fires. Let us now learn the types of fire extinguishers. There are mainly 5 types of fire extinguishers. They are water, foam, powder, carbon dioxide, and wet chemical. Let us learn about each of these in detail. First, let us learn about water-based extinguishers. Water-based extinguishers are very common and should be used on solid materials only. This can include paper, wood, and any other solid fuel. Let us learn about foam extinguishers. Foam extinguishers are used on burning liquids such as petrol or diesel fires. They can also be used on solid fuel fires in the same way as water extinguishers. Foam fire extinguishers are water-based, therefore they can be used on solid fuels and have a cooling effect. They also contain aqueous film-forming foam which smothers the fire and seals in any flammable vapors. This will prevent the fire from reigniting and is why they are used to treat flammable liquids. This is not to be used on flammable gases, flammable metal, electrical fires, and cooking oil fires. Let us now learn about CO2 extinguishers. CO2 extinguishers are typically used on electrical equipment. They can also be used to extinguish flammable liquids in the same way as foam extinguishers. CO2 extinguishers are not generally effective in open air. Since CO2 extinguishers are perfect for electrical fires, they are commonly found in offices or places where there is a lot of electrical devices. CO2 extinguishers use a black label. Now let us learn about dry powder extinguishers. Dry powder extinguishers can be used on most fire types, including electrical devices. Dry powder fire extinguishers can be used on fire types A, B, and C. It can also be used to extinguish type D fires on metals such as magnesium and titanium. Powder extinguishers work to coat the fuel source and smother the fire. They will therefore stop any oxygen from getting to the fuel. Dry powder extinguishers should not be used in confined spaces, as particles that are released can be easily inhaled. Dry powder extinguishers cannot be used on oil fires. Dry powder extinguishers use a blue label. Now let us learn about wet chemical extinguishers. Wet chemical extinguishers are specifically designed to be used on fires that have cooking oils and fats as their fuel. This type of extinguisher both cools and smothers the fire. This is not to be used on flammable liquids, flammable gases, flammable metal, and electrical fires. Wet chemical extinguishers use a yellow label. Next, let us learn about the procedure of working on fire extinguishers. There are mainly 3 steps involved in this process. Step 1. Alerting. Step 2. Identification of fire type. Step 3. Extinguishing the fire. Let us learn about each of these in detail. First, let us look at the alerting stage. Alert people surrounding by shouting "Fire! Fire! Fire!" when observing the fire. Inform fire service or arrange to inform immediately. Open emergency exit and ask them to go away. Put off electrical power supply. Do not allow people to go nearer to the fire. Next, let us learn about the identifying stage of the fire type. Analyze and identify the type of fire. If it is a type B fire, such as flammable fuels, use carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. Locate and pick up carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. Check for its expiry date. Next, let us move on to the extinguishing stage. Break the seal. Pull the safety pin from the handle. The pin is located at the top of the fire extinguisher. Aim the extinguisher nozzle or hose to the base of the fire. This will remove the source of fuel fire. Keep yourself low. Squeeze the handle lever slowly to discharge the agent. Sweep side to side approximately 15 cm over the fuel fire until the fire is put off. Let us learn about the precautions to be taken during this procedure. While putting off fire, the fire may flare up. Do not panic so long as it is put off promptly. If the fire doesn't respond well after you have used up the fire extinguisher, move yourself away from the fire point. Do not attempt to put out a fire when it is emitting toxic smoke. Leave it to the professionals.
To recap, we have learned to define fire and fire extinguishers, identify types of fires and fire extinguishers, state the procedure for using fire extinguishers. So that's all about use of fire extinguishers. Hope you have understood all the concepts. See you in the next session.